My fiancée and her bridesmaid plotted to humiliate me on our wedding day. I canceled everything, and what happened next destroyed her reputation. I'm Jason Miller, 30 years old, and I was supposed to marry the woman I thought was the love of my life, Nancy Donovan, 25, just last week. But instead of walking down the aisle, I walked away from a complete disaster. And honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how quickly everything unraveled. Nancy and I had been together for 10 years, a whole decade. I genuinely believed she was my person. I met her at a 4th of July cookout hosted by one of my college buddies. She was magnetic, funny, gorgeous, with that kind of charisma that makes people stop mid-conversation just to watch her. And me? I was the quiet guy with a beer in my hand who somehow got lucky enough to catch her eye. Our first date was straight out of a rom-com blooper reel. I'd planned this over-the-top dinner at a rooftop steakhouse, trying to impress her. But the reservation got lost. And instead of flipping out, Nancy just laughed and said, "Let's hit that food truck nearby and eat in the park under the stars." That night, I fell hard. She was different, real. For the first 3 years, things were honestly perfect. The kind of relationship people roll their eyes at because it just seems too good to be true. When my grandfather passed away, Nancy was my rock. She handled everything, called my boss to get me out of work, made sure I ate, coordinated the funeral with my mom. She even made my favorite lasagna from scratch, using my mom's old recipe, just to make me feel a little more at home. We had our little traditions, too. Random road trips with no destination, movie marathons with themed snacks, silly notes she'd tuck into my work bag before a big meeting. She was the spark in my life. My friends? They adored her. My sister? Not so much. She never said anything outright, but I could tell. She didn't trust Nancy. I should have listened. Then, about 6 months ago, something shifted. It started subtly. Nancy began mentioning her ex, Tyler, more than what felt normal. We'd be binge-watching a Netflix series, and out of nowhere, she'd drop something like, "Tyler hated this show. He never understood smart humor like this." At first, I brushed it off. Everyone has a past, right? But then, her jokes started getting sharp. Nancy always had a playful side, and I loved that about her. Like the time she swapped all my dress socks for neon pink ones before a presentation. Classic Nancy. But lately, her jokes had an edge to them. When I finally landed the promotion, the one I'd been grinding for over 2 years, we threw a little get-together with friends and coworkers. During a toast, Nancy smiled sweetly and said, "Guess Jason finally got lucky. I think his boss just felt bad for him." The room went dead silent. She laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. That wasn't the Nancy I fell in love with. But the moment that really snapped something inside me was the proposal. I'd planned it down to the last detail. Fancy French restaurant, a bouquet of her favorite peonies, and a custom dessert that would hide the ring. I dropped to one knee, heart pounding, and she just sat there for 5 excruciating minutes. "Oh, I don't know," she teased, while everyone around us stared in total disbelief. I was humiliated. Then she laughed it off. "Relax, babe, it's a joke," she said. But it didn't feel like a joke. Not to me, not anymore. The very things that once made Nancy irresistible, her wild energy, her bold humor, the way she lit up any room, started to feel off. It was like she wasn't doing things for us anymore, but for the reaction. Even my best friend, Marcus, started noticing. He pulled me aside one night and asked, "Man, is Nancy all right?" He hesitated. "She seems different." I brushed it off like I always did. "She's just stressed, wedding planning, work, whatever," I told him. But deep down, I was already starting to feel it too. That growing pit in your stomach, the one you try to ignore. I kept clinging to the old Nancy, the one who'd surprise me with sour gummy worms after a rough day, the one who remembered dumb little things I said months ago, who could snap me out of a funk with one perfectly timed joke, the woman who once made me want to be a better man. But slowly, the cracks were widening. Looking back now, it's so clear. Like watching a slow-motion train wreck, where you already know how it ends, but you can't stop it. Red flags everywhere, and I was colorblind to every single one of them. Then, 2 months before the wedding, everything got weird. The kind of weird that creeps up slowly, but never goes away. The kind where you know something's not right, but can't quite name it. Nancy started bringing up her ex again. Tyler, the same guy she swore was just a page from her past. But now, she dropped his name more often, and always with these twisted, backhanded compliments. Like we'd be out at dinner, I'd mention my latest project at work, and she'd smile and say, "This is why you're so much better than Tyler. He could barely balance a checkbook, and here you are running multi-million-dollar campaigns." I thought she was just trying to hype me up, at first. But then, we'd be grocery shopping. I'd be reading nutrition labels, trying to eat better, and she'd mutter, "Tyler never cared about this stuff. He just grabbed whatever was cheap. He was so simple." And the way she said it, there was a weird softness in her voice, like she missed it. It kept happening. One night, we were watching a space docuseries. She laughed and said, "Tyler would have changed the channel. Too brainy for him. He only ever watched football." I was supposed to feel superior, but instead, I felt sick because it didn't sound like she was mocking him. It sounded like she missed him. Then came the phone, the constant texting, during dinner, movie nights, even when we were supposed to be finalizing wedding details. And if I walked by too close, she'd tilt the screen away, like a reflex. I'm not usually the jealous type, but something in me started buzzing. That kind of warning your gut gives before your mind dares to catch up. Then one night, everything cracked open. She'd fallen asleep on the couch mid-movie, her phone resting loosely on her chest. A message lit up, just for a moment, but that was all it took. Tyler. My blood ran cold. The message preview? "Can't wait to see you tomorrow." I froze completely. That name, so casual, sitting there on her phone while we were engaged, while we were building a life together. My chest tightened as I stared at that little emoji. Harmless to anyone else, but to me, it was a bomb. I tried to convince myself, maybe it was innocent, maybe she was meeting an old friend, maybe it was about the wedding. But my gut was screaming. And once that seed was planted, I couldn't unsee it. I started noticing things, noticing her. Her absences, her weird excuses, the timeline of her stories, they didn't add up anymore. Little inconsistencies that once meant nothing now screamed betrayal. Something was happening behind my back, and I was done pretending not to see it. The so-called wedding planning meetings with her bridesmaids started feeling suspicious. The stories didn't line up, her timeline was off, her energy off. So one day, against my better judgment, I did something I never imagined I'd do. I followed her. Yeah, I felt ridiculous, like a jealous boyfriend in some second-rate soap opera. But I needed the truth. I needed to see it. She drove downtown, parked near this little boutique cafe, and walked in alone. No bridesmaids, no planners, just her and him. Tyler was already inside, sitting at a window seat like he belonged there. My stomach sank. I stood outside, half hidden behind a lamppost, heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. What I saw wasn't just a casual catch-up between exes. They weren't just talking. They looked too comfortable, too familiar. She was laughing, leaning in, twirling a lock of hair around her finger, the way she always did when she was flirting. She smiled at him, the kind of smile I thought was mine, the one that used to make me feel like the only guy in the room. Now I was on the outside, watching her give that look to someone else. And not just anyone else. Him. My fists clenched. I wanted to storm in, to throw it all out in the open, to yell, "What the hell is this?" in front of every latte-sipping customer. But I didn't. I couldn't. I just stood there, paralyzed, watching it all play out, like some twisted movie I didn't audition for. When she got home later, I didn't say a word. I should have, but I needed to know. How deep was this betrayal? And man, over the next few weeks, the lies started unraveling like a threadbare sweater. She'd say she was going dress shopping with her mom. But then her mom would call me at the exact same time, asking about venue deposits or cake flavors, completely unaware. Or she'd claim she had a late meeting at work, only for a coworker of mine, who's also a friend, to casually mention Nancy had left early that day. And the bridesmaids? Yeah, they were off too. Whispering whenever I walked by, shooting me these weird looks anytime the wedding came up. All except one, Jenna. Jenna worked at my company. She was quieter than the rest. Always seemed a little uncomfortable when the other girls were laughing at something I wasn't in on. I remember one afternoon at the venue. Nancy was rambling on about how Tyler could never afford a place like this, how he still lived in a dumpy apartment with 2 roommates. But the way she said it, not mocking, almost nostalgic. Then she turned to me with that too sweet voice and said, "That's why you're so much better, babe. You actually have ambition. Tyler was just simple." Simple. She said it like it was something sweet, like it was a memory she missed, not a comparison she resented. That day, Jenna pulled me aside. She looked like she'd been holding something in for weeks. She started to say, "Jason, there's something I think you—" But then Nancy reappeared. Before Jenna could finish, she clammed up, walked away like she never said anything. But that moment, it stuck with me. Then came the final straw. I'd come home early from work, headache, stress, whatever. I stepped into the backyard and heard Nancy laughing on the phone. She didn't know I was there. I stayed quiet, listened, and then I heard her say it. "Yeah, he has no idea. He thinks I'm with the girls planning wedding stuff." Boom! She saw me through the window. Her face dropped. She hung up immediately, rushed inside, forcing a laugh. "Oh, I was just talking to my sister about a surprise for you," she said. But I wasn't buying it. I knew right then. Before I knew the full scope of what was going on with her and Tyler, before I learned about her twisted little wedding day prank, before all of that, I knew. We were done. The trust? Shattered. But I didn't blow up. Not yet. Call me cold, but I wanted to see just how far she'd go. I wanted to let her dig her own grave. One fake smile, one secret meeting, one smug little inside joke at a time. She thought she was playing me. But the truth? I was done playing nice. All those giggling bridesmaids? The whispered conversations? The inside jokes? The way they'd glance at me and immediately shut up. It was clear something was coming. And knowing Nancy, it wasn't going to be a cute little surprise dance number. No, Nancy lived for spectacle, for pranks, and whatever was brewing behind those champagne toasts and fake smiles, I had this gut-deep feeling it was going to be huge. Looking back, maybe I should have just called off the wedding right then and there. Maybe I should have confronted her, ended it, before things got worse. But the truth is, I'm glad I didn't. Because what happened next gave me all the ammunition I needed. It was about 3 weeks before the wedding. I was parked outside that same downtown coffee shop, watching her and Tyler laugh like they didn't have a care in the world, as if I didn't exist. That was the moment something snapped inside me. I needed a plan. Now, normally, I'm not the plotting type. Nancy was always the organizer, the spreadsheet queen. But this time, I let instinct take over. I called my best friend Mike. Mike's a corporate lawyer, the kind of guy who can pick apart a contract in his sleep and loves telling war stories about the nastiest divorces you've ever heard. We'd been tight since college, and he'd never liked Nancy. Not since that time she crashed his birthday party dressed as a singing telegram and humiliated him in front of his entire firm. Yeah, that kind of prankster. I called him while still watching her flip her hair and flash that fake smile at Tyler. "Dude," I said, "I need your help. I think Nancy's planning something for the wedding, and I don't think it's going to be good." There was a pause on the line. Then Mike said, "Get to my office, now." 30 minutes later, I was sitting in a sleek leather chair across from him while he listened, stone-faced, to everything I'd seen, everything I suspected. When I finished, he leaned back and said the words that would change everything. "We need insurance." He grabbed a legal pad and started scribbling like he was drafting the next Constitution. "Look," he said, "I can't stop her from pulling whatever garbage she's planning, but we can make sure she regrets it if she does." We spent nearly 4 hours drafting what might be the most brilliant, petty piece of legal theater ever created. A completely fake prenuptial agreement. Mike warned me it wouldn't hold up in court for 5 seconds, but that wasn't the point. It looked real. It sounded real. It had dense legal language I couldn't even pretend to understand, obscure case law references, and a clause so specific it might as well have had Nancy's name on it. If either party engages in willful, deliberate public humiliation or embarrassment of the other party prior to the execution of this agreement, all jointly incurred financial obligations will be immediately nullified, and the offending party must issue a public apology, digital and verbal, within 48 hours. Oh yeah, we defined everything. Public humiliation, financial obligation, even verbal slander. Mike even threw in some fake citations and had his secretary notarize it for the ultimate touch of authenticity. Nancy? She once told me she didn't even read her apartment lease. Mike laughed. She'll sign it without blinking. I printed the contract, slid it into a black leather folder, and handed it off to my best man, Dan. I told him, keep it on you during the wedding, just in case. Dan thought I was being paranoid, but he's known me since we were 5. He saw the stress in my eyes, the tension in my voice. He didn't argue. Still, part of me felt like I was going too far, like maybe this was all just some elaborate misunderstanding. But then I'd remember. Nancy was still sneaking around with Tyler, still lying about where she was, still laughing with her bridesmaids behind my back. And that was all the confirmation I needed. And then came Jenna, the quiet one, the only bridesmaid who looked uncomfortable every time Nancy made a snarky joke about Tyler. One day, she showed up at my office, pale as a ghost, visibly shaking. "Jason," she said, "I don't think I can stay quiet anymore. There's something—" And then her phone rang. Nancy's name lit up the screen. Jenna's face turned white. She shoved the phone in her purse and practically bolted, whispering, "I'm sorry," before walking out. That was all I needed to know. After that, everything she did screamed cover-up. Long phone calls in the bathroom with the shower running. Slamming her laptop shut the second I walked in the room. random excuses to leave the house, alone for some self-care. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was confirmation. Something big was coming. But this time, I was ready. There was this one night, I'll never forget it. Nancy thought I was asleep, but I wasn't. I cracked my eyes open, just enough to catch her sitting at the edge of the bed, phone in hand, quietly deleting texts one by one. Her face was lit by the screen. Her expression? Tense, focused. She never noticed I was watching. And then, just like that, the next day, she brought home my favorite Chinese takeout, suggested a movie night, picked all my favorite old comedies. Looking back now, I don't think it was affection. I think it was guilt. Or maybe she was just trying to throw me off the scent, bury her betrayal under General Tso's chicken and fake laughter. Either way, it didn't work. The night before the wedding, I was at my parents' place, pacing my old bedroom like a man with a secret. Nancy had insisted on doing the traditional no seeing each other before the ceremony thing. I think she just didn't want me to catch a glimpse of her smirk before the storm hit. That's when I found myself staring at that black leather folder, the one with the fake prenup Mike and I had cooked up. Part of me still hoped I'd never need it. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe this was all some elaborate surprise party gone sideways. But my gut wasn't buying it. My mom walked in and found me staring at it. She didn't know what it was, but she knew her son, and she knew when something was wrong. She sat beside me, put a hand on my shoulder, and said, "Jason, honey, if something doesn't feel right, you don't have to go through with this." I forced a smile. "Told you everything's fine, Mom." It was a lie, and I think we both knew it. That night, I gave the folder to Dan, my best man. Told him, "Whatever happens, keep this with you, close." He made some half-hearted joke about it being like one of those dramatic wedding scenes where someone objects and chaos breaks loose. But neither of us laughed. Morning came, the wedding day, and to my surprise, it was perfect. Eerily perfect. Eerily perfect. The venue, stunning. The decorations, exactly what Nancy had obsessed over for months. The weather, bright, clear, not a single cloud. As I got dressed with the groomsmen, I kept telling myself, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I've just been spiraling. Dan kept patting his bag like it was rigged with a nuclear football. Every 10 minutes, he checked it. His own quiet mission. My other groomsmen joked he was being weird about the wedding rings. But Dan didn't flinch. He knew what was in that bag. My mom was already crying before the ceremony even started. Happy tears, she claimed. My dad kept adjusting my tie over and over, even though it was already straight. Looking back, I think they both felt it, that something wasn't quite right, but no one wanted to be the one to say it. Then I was standing at the altar, waiting. Guests whispering, Nancy's bridesmaids giggling in a cluster behind the floral arch. All except Jenna. She looked pale, uncomfortable, like she wanted to be anywhere but there. She wouldn't even look at me. And then music. Everyone rose. Nancy walked down the aisle on her father's arm, glowing like some Pinterest-perfect bride. She really did look breathtaking, picture-perfect, which just made what happened next feel like a knife to the chest. The ceremony started normally. The priest was up there, talking about love, commitment, forever. I almost started to relax. Maybe this really will be okay. And then, right before we were about to exchange vows, Nancy did something no one expected. She took the microphone from the priest. The poor guy looked like a deer in headlights, but she flashed that same overconfident smile and said, "Don't worry, Father. I just have a little surprise for my amazing soon-to-be husband." My heart dropped. Dan immediately reached into the bag, hand on the folder. My dad sat up straighter in his seat. Even my mom stopped dabbing her eyes. Nancy turned to the guests, all smiles, like she was hosting a game show. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, practically beaming, "let's all give a big warm welcome to the real love of my life." And in that moment, everything shattered. The doors at the back of the venue swung open with a theatrical creak, like we were suddenly part of some off-brand wedding reality show. And then he walked in. Tyler. Like he was the damn star of the evening, just strolling down the aisle with this smug grin on his face, hands in his pockets, as if none of this was completely insane. Guests started turning in their seats, heads whipping around in confusion, gasps rippled across the room. My mom let out this sharp gasp, loud enough to make the back row flinch. My sister, she shot to her feet like she was about to tackle someone. One of my aunts actually said, "Oh no," out loud, like she was watching a car crash in slow motion. And Nancy, oh Nancy, was just beaming at the chaos she'd unleashed, smiling like she'd just won a damn Emmy. She took the mic again, like she was hosting the Nancy Donovan show, and said, all chipper and sweet, "I just couldn't say I do without making sure Tyler approved first. He's been such a big part of my life, and, well, we've been talking a lot lately." The whole room froze. Then, Tyler actually had the audacity to walk up to the altar, clapped me on the back like we were old friends catching up at a bar. "Big day, huh?" he grinned, like this was all just good fun. My fists clenched, my jaw locked. I could feel the rage boiling in my chest. All I could see was his smirk. All I could hear was the sound of Nancy laughing along with her bridesmaids, most of whom were now giggling like they were watching some TikTok prank go viral in real time. The priest looked mortified, like he was ready to fake a heart attack and vanish from existence. And Jenna was crying, full-on tears. She wouldn't look at anyone, just silently shaking, hands clenched at her sides. But Nancy wasn't done. No, not even close. She pulled out her phone and turned to me with a smile so bright it felt like a slap. "Oh, and I have something else to show everyone," she said. She started scrolling, then turned the screen toward me. "Look, babe," she grinned, like she was giving me a surprise gift. "The girls and I had a little pool going." I stared at her phone, and everything just stopped. My brain couldn't process it at first. It was a group chat with all her bridesmaids, and they'd been betting money on how I'd react on our wedding day. I'm talking actual wagers. One of them bet $200 that Nancy would pull cold feet at the altar and run off. Another put $150 on me breaking down and crying. Lisa had $300 riding on Nancy does something epic to shake things up. They even had a whole spreadsheet with odds, like they were betting on the Super Bowl. Except it wasn't a game. It was my life. These weren't just jokes from last night after a few drinks. These messages went back months. This had been planned, thought out, coordinated. While I was picking napkin colors and tasting cake samples, they were sitting around crafting a public humiliation campaign. And Nancy? She was scrolling through the chat, laughing. "Oh, look," she said, pointing to one of the messages. "Rachel almost got it right. She said I'd bring surprise guest. That's close enough to count, right?" She giggled. Tyler looked over her shoulder and chuckled. "You really went all out for this one," he said. I looked around the room. Guests were whispering. Phones were out. Some were recording. Of course they were. This was the social media moment of the year. Humiliated groom, runaway bride vibes, the ex crashing the altar. It was going to be on TikTok in minutes. Maybe it already was. And Nancy, standing there in that perfect white designer dress, was waiting for me to laugh. Like this was just another one of her pranks. Like I'd chuckle, shake my head, and marry her anyway. Like she hadn't just burned our entire relationship to the ground in front of everyone we knew. She thought she'd won. But what she didn't know, I had something of my own. And the moment of reckoning was seconds away. "Come on, babe," Nancy said, with a playful poke to my ribs, like this was some cute little inside joke. "You're not mad, right? It's just a joke. Tyler's not really going to object or anything." She glanced over at him, and they both burst into laughter again. But I wasn't laughing. I glanced at Dan. He already had the folder halfway out of his bag. And Nancy, she still wasn't done humiliating me. With that same fake sparkle in her eyes, she turned back to the crowd and said, "Ooh, should I tell them about the backup plan? You know, just in case Jason actually got mad?" That was it. That was the moment. This wasn't just a prank. This wasn't just Nancy being Nancy. This was planned, premeditated. She'd spent months organizing this public spectacle. She'd pulled in her bridesmaids, her ex, probably half the people sitting in that room. And all for what? To get a few laughs? To go viral? As I stared at her, smiling, glowing, practically high on the attention, I didn't see the woman I fell in love with anymore. I saw someone who thought love was a punchline, who thought my heart was a prop. So if she wanted a show, I'd give her a show. I smiled, calm, controlled, cold. And she smiled back, thinking I was finally in on the joke. Poor thing. I turned to the priest, who, at this point, looked like he was mentally rewriting his retirement papers, and said politely, "Father, do we have that little table set up for the marriage license? I just need to grab something." He pointed wordlessly to a small table off to the side. The room was dead silent now. You could hear people breathing. Nancy's still smiling, but there's a flicker of confusion now. This wasn't in the script. I walked over to Dan. He handed me the black folder like it was a sacred relic. I turned back to the room and for a second just let the silence stretch. Then I held it up, voice steady, like I was giving a quarterly business presentation. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, "before we move forward, I'd like to share a quick document with my dear fiancé." Nancy tilted her head, eyes narrowing. "Wait, what?" I slowly walked back to the altar, calm as ever, hands steady, no hesitation. "See, Nancy," I said, like I was explaining basic math to a child. "I had my attorney draft a little agreement before the wedding. Just a precaution, you know, in case something exactly like this ever happened." I held up the contract so everyone could see the polished, official-looking seal stamped at the bottom. Nancy's face went pale. Her perfect smile began to twitch. "What the hell is that?" she asked, voice cracking. "Oh, just a little clause," I said, casually flipping through the pages. Right here, it states that if either party engages in deliberate public humiliation before the marriage license is signed, then all joint financial obligations, like, say, the wedding expenses, the honeymoon bookings, even shared accounts, are immediately null and void. There was a gasp, a literal movie-style gasp from the guests. "And," I continued, tapping the page, "the offending party must issue a public apology in front of all the gathered witnesses." Nancy blinked, hard, like she was trying to wake up from a nightmare. "Wait, what? That's not real. That can't be real." "Oh, it's very real," I said, channeling my best courtroom confidence. "Legally binding or not, it's signed by you and notarized." Tyler finally stopped smirking. "Dude, you can't be serious. This is a joke, right?" I turned to him, gave him the biggest smile I've ever given anyone. "Oh, I love jokes, Tyler. Don't you? Especially ones where you help my fiancé humiliate me in front of my family, my friends, And I turned back to the guests, a room full of people with smartphones and social media. Nancy's perfect foundation was starting to melt as beads of sweat formed at her temples. Her makeup was running, mascara turning to mud. The guests weren't laughing anymore. They were watching and recording. And just like that, the game turned. The joke wasn't on me anymore. It was on her.
"Babe, this is crazy," Nancy said, her voice pitching with panic as she stepped closer. "You're not actually mad, are you?" That's when I hit her with the line I'd been rehearsing since the day I saw her giggling with Tyler in that coffee shop. "Mad?" I said, my voice calm, too calm. "Why would I be mad, Nancy? This is hilarious. It's all part of the fun, right?" Then, with a loud snap, I shut the folder and tucked it under my arm. "I'm canceling the entire wedding." Silence. Total, nuclear silence. You could have heard a pin drop from the parking lot. Nancy's perfect bridal smile cracked like glass. "Wait, what?" "Oh, don't look so surprised," I said, stepping back from the altar. "You got your little laugh, your viral moment. Now it's my turn. Wedding's off." That's when the room exploded. Gasps, whispers, guests shifted in their seats like they were trying to decide whether to run or stay for the drama. The priest stepped back like he wanted nothing to do with either of us. Nancy's bridesmaids weren't giggling anymore. Her face went from ghost white to burning red in seconds. "You're joking," she whispered, but her voice was trembling. "Am I?" I said, looking at Dan. "Hey man, would you do the honors?" Dan, the absolute legend, pulled out his phone, hit play, and through the venue speakers came the loud, triumphant opening notes of "Hit the Road, Jack." Some guests laughed out loud. Others just gawked, frozen. A few stood up and started walking out, clearly the smart ones. Nancy looked like her knees were about to give out. "You're not serious," she kept saying. "You're not walking away." But I was already halfway down the aisle. "Oh, I literally am," I said over my shoulder. I turned to my parents. My mom was actually smiling now, tears still in her eyes, but no longer the sad kind. My dad, standing tall, proud. He clapped me on the shoulder. "I think we're done here," I said. And my dad, always the practical one, stepped into action. He turned to the crowd and began politely announcing that the wedding was canceled. Just like that. No hesitation. Then I looked back toward the altar. Tyler was trying to slide out of view, inching away like a cartoon villain who just realized he picked the wrong hero. "Hey, Tyler," I called out. He froze. "You like stealing people's fiancés, right? Well, congrats. She's all yours." Boom. Smirk, gone. Nancy whipped around to him, panicked. "Tyler, tell him this is stupid." But Tyler had already bolted. Yeah, I think I'm gonna head out," he muttered, practically sprinting for the doors. The bridesmaids were all staring at the floor now, pretending they weren't part of it. Some guests were laughing. Others were recording. And Nancy? She looked like her entire world had just crumbled in real time. "You can't just leave me like this," she shrieked. I stopped at the end of the aisle and turned around one last time. "Nancy, you love attention so much. Well, congratulations, you're getting it." And with that, I walked out of my own wedding. No ring, no regrets. The fallout? It was glorious. Within the next 24 hours, my phone exploded. Messages, missed calls, voice notes, all from Nancy. At first, she pretended to be confused.
Why did you leave? It was just a joke. You're overreacting. Then came the rage. Long-winded messages about how I humiliated her, how I ruined her big day, how I had no right to just walk out like that. Ugh, the irony. But here's the kicker. Remember that group chat? Yeah. Dan, the MVP of this entire saga, had the foresight to grab screenshots from one of the bridesmaids' phones before we left the venue. Every bet, every message, every smug, cruel line about what they were planning, even the ones from months ago. We had receipts. So when Nancy tried to spin the story online, guess who showed up in the comments with screenshots? Yeah, game over. Turns out, when you turn someone's wedding into a game show, people don't exactly rally to your side. Nancy tried hard, real hard, to spin the narrative. She started posting online like I had abandoned her at the altar. Suddenly, she was the heartbroken victim, left weeping in white, while I, the cruel runaway groom, shattered her fairy tale. But then the screenshots started circulating. And oh, did they circulate. All those sick little messages from the bridesmaids group chat, the bets, the gloating, the entire plan to embarrass me in front of hundreds of people started going viral. People were furious. Apparently, the internet doesn't take kindly to wedding sabotage for laughs, especially when there's a spreadsheet involved. The fallout? Legendary. Sarah, the maid of honor, the one who laughed the loudest and bet the most, lost a job offer when someone forwarded her $200 on the groom crying message to her future employer. I guess corporate America isn't into cruelty as a hobby. Nancy's parents called me the very next day. Her mom sobbed on the phone, said she had no idea Nancy would do something like this. Apparently, they'd warned her not to pull anything stupid or showy during the wedding. Her dad? He was blunt. He apologized, said he completely understood why I walked away. Then came the money. Nancy had the audacity to demand that I at least pay her back for wedding expenses. I laughed. Why? Because I paid for everything. The venue? My card. The catering? My account. The photographer, the open bar, even the godforsaken flower wall she wanted for Instagram moments, all me. Even the 2-week honeymoon in Maui she'd been bragging about for months, fully booked under my name. One phone call later, poof, canceled. The venue manager was cool about it, actually said, "I've seen some crazy wedding drama, but this one's a first." Nancy had already posted about the honeymoon online, had to come up with some excuse about why she wasn't uploading from a tropical beach. Guess I emotionally detonated my own wedding wasn't exactly on brand. The bridesmaids? Yeah, they ghosted fast. One by one, they started backing away like rats jumping a burning ship. Suddenly, no one remembered laughing. No one remembered betting. No one wanted to be associated with her anymore. And Tyler? Gone. Just flat out ghosted. Wouldn't answer her texts, wouldn't return her calls. I guess the thrill died when he realized the internet was roasting him for being that guy. He didn't look so smug once people started tagging him in comments like, "What kind of loser ruins someone else's wedding for attention?" But the most surprising part? Jenna. She came by my office a few days later. Quiet, nervous, but sincere. She told me everything. Said she'd known for weeks. That she'd tried, really tried to convince Nancy to stop. That she'd begged her to rethink it, to not cross that line. But Nancy didn't care. "Trust me," she had told Jenna, "it's going to be hilarious. Jason will get over it." Jenna hated it. She said she'd barely slept the night before the wedding, sick to her stomach over what was coming. When she saw me standing there at the altar, clueless, smiling, she said she wanted to scream, but she froze, paralyzed by fear and guilt.
As she told me all this, her voice was trembling. I could see how much it weighed on her, like she thought I'd never forgive her for not doing more. But the truth? At that moment, for the first time in months, I saw something real. Someone with a conscience. Someone who cared. She hadn't joined in. She hadn't laughed. She hadn't bet money on my humiliation. She'd tried. And that stuck with me more than anything else. Then, exactly 1 week after the non-wedding, Nancy showed up. Unannounced, no makeup, hair unbrushed, still wearing her engagement ring like it meant something. She looked wrecked. Tears already streaming down her face, she started in on the apologies. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. I still love you. We can fix this." I let her talk. Didn't say a word. Just watched. Then I handed her a small white envelope. She looked confused, hopeful even. Inside was a card that read, "Rehearsal dinner, Sunday, 6 p.m. Location? Not a chance. Dress code? Regret." She looked up at me, trembling, eyes wide, heartbroken. "I just wanted you to feel how it feels," I said, "and now you do." Then I closed the door, and that, my friend, was the end of that chapter. Same venue, same time, same guest list. Only this time, no groom's name on the invitation. Just a single line printed across the top of the card. "Now we're even." That's what Nancy found when she showed up, uninvited, to my apartment one last time. She stood there at the door, rereading the fake invitation 5 times, like her brain couldn't compute it. When she finally looked up at me, eyes wide with a dawning realization, I just gave her one last look and shut the door in her face. Remember all those phones that were recording during her prank wedding show? Yeah, clips started showing up online fast. The internet named her the bride who got left as a joke. Her own twisted stunt became a meme. The moment she thought she'd owned her instead. Some of her friends tried jumping in to defend her. They posted stuff like, "He overreacted. It was just a joke. He should have known Amy was playful." But the screenshots didn't stop. Every time someone tried to defend her, another round of receipts hit the internet. Bets, group chat messages, mocking comments about me. It wasn't a prank anymore. It was a blueprint for cruelty, and people saw right through it. Nancy tried reaching out through mutual friends, playing the "I've learned my lesson" card. But every time someone showed me her messages, they ended up seeing the screenshots too. Pretty soon, even they stopped sticking up for her. It's been 6 months since the wedding that never was. Nancy never bounced back. She kept clawing at the walls, sending messages like, "We can fix this," as if forgiveness was some renewable resource she hadn't burned to ash with every petty scheme. But I was done. Absolutely done. The bridesmaids? They ghosted too. Sarah, the ex-maid of honor, actually sent me this long-winded apology, saying she should have stopped it, should have warned me, should have known better. Yeah, should have. Too little, way too late. And Tyler? Blocked Nancy on everything. Started telling people he was manipulated into the whole thing, that it wasn't really his idea. Last I heard, he moved back to his hometown and took a job working at his dad's hardware store. Guess the simple life wasn't so bad after all. Nancy's parents? Still apologizing to this day. Every time they run into my family, her mom gets teary. She even sent me a Christmas card that said, "Not a day goes by I don't wish I'd seen what was coming." Her dad? He helped me sell the house Nancy and I were supposed to move into. But here's the thing. Something good came out of all of it. Jen and I started talking after everything blew up. Coffee here and there, lunch breaks at work. Nothing serious at first. She was everything Nancy wasn't. Quiet, thoughtful, kind. The kind of person who asks how you're doing and actually listens to the answer. Someone who doesn't weaponize humor. Someone who thinks empathy matters more than entertainment. 3 months after the non-wedding, we made it official. My parents, they love her. Even my sister, who saw through Nancy from day one, said, "Finally, someone who deserves you." Of course, Nancy found out. Tried stirring up drama online, claiming Jen stole me, saying Jen planned everything and manipulated the situation to get me. No one bought it. The screenshots, the truth, were still out there. No one was falling for the victim act anymore. Nancy's credibility? Gone. Eventually, she even tried posting this long-winded Facebook apology. You know the type. "I've reflected on my actions. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I'm working on myself." It was all too little, too late. You can only fake growth so many times before no one cares. As for me, I don't regret walking out of that wedding. I regret not seeing it all sooner. But in the end, I dodged a lifetime with someone who thought love was something to laugh at. And somehow, in the wreckage, I found someone who thinks it's something to protect. Nancy made a big show online about how she'd grown, how she'd reflected, and how she was deeply sorry for what happened. Her long Facebook post was practically a TED Talk on lessons learned from public humiliation. Then, 2 days later, she showed up in my company's parking lot trying to confront Jen. Yeah, real personal growth. Security had to escort her out. But that was the last time I saw her in person. After that, she disappeared. For good this time. As for me, life actually got better. I got promoted at work, a real promotion. Not the one Nancy once mocked during a party, calling it a pity promotion in front of my coworkers. I moved into a new apartment in a better part of town. No shared walls with memories, just a fresh start. Jen and I, we're taking things slow. No pressure, no chaos. Last month, we went on a beach trip. Nothing fancy. No hashtags, no filters, no "look at our perfect vacation" posts. Just sand, sea, and peace. She didn't try to turn every quiet moment into content. And you know what? It was perfect. Oh, and the prenup folder? Mike, my lawyer best friend, had it framed and gave it to me as a birthday gift. It's hanging in my home office now, right above my desk. Jen thinks it's hilarious. My friends say I dodged a bullet. Personally, I think I dodged a firing squad. Sometimes I look at old photos of me and Nancy and wonder how I ever missed the signs. But that's the thing about rose-colored glasses. Red flags just look like flags. And weirdly, I'm grateful it happened. If Nancy hadn't shown her true colors that day, I might have married her. Might have spent years being the punchline to her next big joke. Might have never known she was meeting Tyler behind my back. Never known just how far she'd go for attention. Instead, I ended up with someone who respects me, who listens, who believes love isn't about spectacle or followers or humiliating your partner for clout. So yeah, that's where everyone ended up. Nancy, still single, still living with her parents. Tyler moved back to his hometown, works at his dad's store now. The bridesmaids scattered across the country. Quietly, of course. No group chats this time. And me? I'm actually happy. Sometimes the worst day of your life turns out to be the best thing that ever happened to you.